May 27, 1997. On a highway in central Texas, drivers are abandoning their cars and running for shelter because the thing crossing the fields ahead of them is not behaving like a tornado. It is barely moving, almost patient, as if it has all the time in the world. And in a way, it does. In the next 13 minutes, this storm will do something so extreme that engineers will study the wreckage for decades.
All along I-35, people stopped and watched the storm come right at them.
And a neighborhood of 38 homes will simply stop existing. Texas has a longer memory for tornadoes than almost anywhere on Earth. In May of 1953, an F5 drove straight through the heart of downtown Waco and killed 114 people. One of the deadliest single tornadoes in American history. The city buried its dead, and a generation grew up believing that lightning like that could never strike the same state twice. Then came April of 1979, a day North Texans still call Terrible Tuesday, when a massive tornado carved through Wichita Falls, erased thousands of homes, and killed dozens more. Texans had seen what the sky could do. They thought they had seen the worst of it. But they were wrong. The morning of May 27th gave no hint of what was coming. Central Texas woke up to sunshine. People were doing their thing.
I went outside and it was a beautiful day. I mean, it was 90-something degrees, sun beaming down.
The National Weather Service expected thunderstorms that afternoon. It was late May in Texas. Thunderstorms were nothing new to people of Texas around that time. But the people who read the sky for a living felt something off from the moment they stepped outside. The air wasn't just humid, it was loaded. All that heat and moisture was pooling near the ground like gasoline spreading across a garage floor. And the amount of raw energy stored in the atmosphere that day was climbing toward levels meteorologists rarely see. All it needed was a spark. Here's the strange part. The part that still bothers scientists. The usual ingredients for a violent tornado. The roaring upper-level winds, the strong wind shear were mostly missing that day. By the textbook, an F5 should not have been possible. The atmosphere over Texas had not read the textbook. Just before 1 o'clock, storms began exploding along a weak boundary draped across the region, towers of cloud punching miles into the sky, visible from 50 miles away, like slow-motion detonations. And instead of racing off to the northeast the way Texas storms almost always do, this cluster began drifting the wrong direction, southwest, down the spine of Interstate 35, straight along one of the most heavily traveled corridors in the state. At 1:21 in the afternoon, the first tornado warning went out near Waco. A twister dropped south of the city. Television cameras caught it churning through the haze while anchors told people in Hewitt, Robinson, and Lorena to get underground.
Still a tornado. There it is right there on Skycam. You can see how hazy it is out this afternoon. There's a lot of humidity out there. You can see right here the tornado will continue to move down towards the southeast. Persons in Hewitt, Robinson, and Lorena, take cover. This is a big tornado. It's a large tornado.
Over the next hour, more funnels spun up and vanished across the region as if the atmosphere was testing its own strength.
It's far enough away. It's going back up. No, it ain't. You can't see it in between there, but on the ground, it's still going.
Around 2:25, a second supercell matured over Bell County and slammed into Lake Belton. A violent tornado tore across the water into Morgan's Point Resort, ripping the marina apart and then chewing through a residential area with F3 strength winds. Around 40 homes were damaged or destroyed. But the warning had gotten out early, people were sheltered, and nobody died there. The day was not ending. The storms kept sliding southwest, and by mid-afternoon, radar operators watched a new circulation tighten over northern Williamson County, a small farming town of about 400 people. This town is called Jarrell, At 3:30, the National Weather Service issued a tornado warning for Williamson County.
The National Weather Service in Austin, San Antonio has issued a tornado warning effective until 4:30 p.m. for people in Williamson County in south central Texas.
And in the fields a few miles northwest of town, witnesses began seeing something that looked almost harmless. A thin, ropey funnel, pale against the dark sky, hanging nearly motionless in the air. That stillness was the trap. A tornado that races past you is gone in 90 seconds. A tornado that doesn't move gives you the fatal impression that you have time. At about 3:40, the rope touched down near the community of Prairie Dell and began drifting southwest, roughly parallel to Interstate 35. Then, on home video shot from along the highway, the funnel did something that people who saw it have never been able to forget. As it crossed the open ground, the single column split apart into multiple slender vortices, long pale streamers reaching down from the cloud base and striding across the fields one after another like moving arms. Storm watchers have a name for that sight: the dead man walking. On the interstate, traffic stopped. Law enforcement shut the highway down, afraid the storm would lurch across it. Drivers crawled under overpasses and pressed themselves into ditches, turning a bridge into one of the worst places in the world to be. A county constable named Gary Griffin was out on that highway trying to move terrified people to safety, surrounded by funnels forming in every direction, and he would admit later that he was every bit as scared as they were.
Big one's over there. That one, there was another one over there. There was another one over there. They were all scared. I was scared.
At around 3:45, the transformation happened. In the span of a few minutes, the thin rope exploded into a black wedge 3/4 of a mile wide, a wall of rotating darkness so broad that people standing in front of it could see nothing else. It was no longer a funnel in the sky. It was the sky, directly in its path. Near County Road 305 sat the Ego family's land. The tornado took everything, tearing multi-ton equipment apart and scattering the pieces across the fields. 5 members of the Ego family were killed there together. In the pastures around them, hundreds of cattle died, and the survey teams who came later found animals stripped and thrown a 1/4 mile from where they had been grazing. The men who documented it, hardened storm scientists, struggled to describe what they were looking. And then, at about 3:48 in the afternoon, the tornado reached Double Creek Estates. 38 homes. A quiet subdivision on the northwest edge of Jarrell struck by the tornado that came over it with winds estimated beyond 260 miles per hour. The top of the Fujita scale, the strongest category that exists. And then it did the one thing no one can survive by hiding in a bathroom. It stayed. A typical tornado crosses a property in seconds. This one was crawling at 5 to 10 miles an hour, and over parts of Double Creek it slowed even further, grinding in place minute after minute. The homes were not knocked down, they were dismantled. The ground itself was scoured up to 18 inches deep, leaving raw earth where lawns had been. Asphalt was peeled off the roads and sucked into the storm. Vehicles were beaten into unrecognizable sheets of metal and dropped in open fields, crusted in mud and grass. Investigators would later note the most chilling detail of the entire disaster. When they walked the subdivision, they could not find any large debris. No refrigerators, no sections of wall, no furniture. Everything that had made up 38 homes had been reduced to fragments, and most of it was simply gone. There were no basements in Double Creek. There was almost nowhere to go. People sheltered in interior rooms and bathtubs, in the exact places every safety guide tells you to be. And in most tornadoes, those places save lives. Against this, they were not enough. A 9-year-old girl named Crystal was inside one of those homes when it came apart around her. She remembered the sound building like a mountain of metal clattering all at once, the wall behind her collapsing onto her, pinning her down and forcing dirt into her mouth as she fought to breathe. She lived, unlike many of the people on her street.
It was just like whoosh, like everything was just like gone. The wall behind me, it fell. I remember it like pushing me down, and I could feel it like pushing me. And I just remember like the dirt going in my mouth because I was trying to breathe, and I remember trying to like spit it out.
When Constable Griffin finally made it off the interstate and into what was left of the subdivision, his fear turned into something heavier. Searching the ground where the houses had been, he found a mother and her child together, still holding on to each other.
She was a mom holding on to her. They were just holding each other. And they died that way.
That was how the storm had left them. At 3:53 p.m., barely 5 miles from where it had first touched down, the tornado crossed into a stand of cedar trees south of the subdivision and dissolved as suddenly as it had formed. 13 minutes. That was its entire life. One of the most complete acts of destruction ever recorded by a tornado anywhere on Earth. And even then, the sky wasn't done with the survivors. Torrential rain and large hail hammered the ruins. Lightning kept rescuers pinned down, and the roads into Double Creek were buried under mud and wreckage. Back in Double Creek, the first responders arriving from Round Rock and the surrounding towns expected what tornado veterans always expect: roofs gone, trees down, cars flipped. What they found instead stopped them where they stood. One paramedic commander said they drove into the subdivision and saw nothing but flat concrete. So little remaining that they couldn't tell they had arrived at the neighborhood they'd been dispatched to. Neighbors who ran over to help dig people out froze at the edge of the slabs because there was nothing to dig through. No walls, no wreckage piles. A man who searched the field said he expected to find something, anything, and found only scattered fragments. 20 tornadoes touched down across central Texas that day. The outbreak killed 28 people and injured dozens more. The damage across the region climbed past $126 million. But the numbers that matter belong to one subdivision. 27 people died in Double Creek Estates. Every single fatality of the Jarrell tornado out of roughly 130 residents. Entire families were erased together. Some could only be identified afterward through dental records. That is what winds beyond 260 miles an hour do when they refuse to move on. Jarrell rebuilt. Double Creek Estates exists again today, new homes on old ground. On the land where the Ego family lived, the town built a memorial park. And at its heart stand 27 trees, one for every life the storm cut short, alongside a monument downtown engraved with every name. The disaster forced meteorologists to confront an uncomfortable truth, that a catastrophic tornado can form on a day when the textbook says it shouldn't. The science got better because of Jarrell. That was the town's unwanted gift to everyone who lives in tornado country. But for the people who were there, the lesson was never about meteorology. It was about the neighbors who ran toward the ruins before the rain had even stopped, the constable who stayed on a highway surrounded by funnels because people needed help, the searchers who refused to quit until every family had an answer. 13 minutes took almost everything from Jarrell. Every storm eventually ends, but the way we hold each other, that remains. Take care of one another. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. See you in the next one.